The Indiana Fever finished last season in the top half of the standings with a 20-20 record. After adding Aliyah Boston and Caitlin Clark in consecutive drafts, their future is solidified and it's already their time to strike. The WNBA went through a lot of moving and shaking over this previous offseason, and the Fever were among the league's biggest movers. They could be staring home court advantage in the eye as soon as this season. But just how good are the Indiana Fever? The Indiana Fever just got done playing the Connecticut Sun, where Stephanie White won Coach of the Year in 2023. She's a bigger addition than any of the incoming players, which is really saying something. In the first 6 games of the Fever's season, 4 of them were against former Sun starters, and 1 of them was against Connecticut. She also brought DeWanna Bonner with her to Indiana. Other incoming Fever players include Natasha Howard, Sophie Cunningham, Brianna Turner, and Sydney Colson. All of a sudden, they're a very experienced team. Here Bonner clean rips Angel Reese, gets a couple easy points and forces Tyler Marsh to call a timeout. That's a big momentum play that dictates quite a few dynamics. It was quite the rout in the season opener, and I'll have a video covering the Fever and Sky season series, so let's go to Game 2 against the Dream. Fun tidbit to keep in mind, the next few plays heavily featured the WNBA's 3 most previous first overall picks. This first play was off the back of a bit of disagreement from the law firm of Boston and Clark, as well as Coach White, towards the officials, but they shake that off to execute. It's also off a made Ryan Howard free throw, and an embodiment of something Stephanie White stands for, KYP, Know Your Personnel. It's low-key bullying, knowing the slow-footed grinder isn't going to bother herself with defending on the perimeter, and just such an easy quick hitter. Even with Kelsey Mitchell taking way too long to make this hit, it's still open off a strong screen from Boston. We go down the other end and Clark gets a steal, which turns into a touchdown pass and easy transition, which eventuated in a foul. Look at how easily this team can get things back on their terms. Then on the next defensive play, Boston draws a foul on Griner, winning her team the possession back. We go down the other end of the court and White was loving this Clark and Boston action, with Mitchell as the accoutrement. I love the posturing here. With the game in the balance, we want our 1-5 to go against your 1-5 because we know we're going to win. This overly spaced out double drag screen into pick and roll is finished with another strong Boston screen, and oh my god, Griner is in the middle of nowhere. There's no pressure on Clark or Boston, and they can take their pick, which is the open big in the lane. Also, talk your shit, Caitlin. The Dream broke away in the third quarter of this game, but after the Fever got their first lead since 2-0 with 20 seconds remaining in the game, it was number 1 overall pick Ryan Howard who got the last laugh. The two then met 2 days later, in Atlanta this time. Apparently it can get pretty cold in the A, so you better pack accordingly. Perhaps a bad sign from a group that wants to have postseason success is how they started the game. Atlanta got very comfortable early in the game and made Indiana's offense messy. Breonna Jones and Brittany Griner were landing the first punches, and an early story for the Fever season was the big matchup. Sophie Cunningham made her first appearance in this matchup, and there was an instant shift in energy and intensity, mixed with Steph White pressing full court. It was refreshing to see this team establish themselves in control of a basketball game through the defensive end. End of the first quarter, they got into a bit more of a flow. I love this play here. Look at how active and energetic everyone is. Love the decision of Clark to pass to Howard here. Puts the Dream into disarray. Even though this pass was intended for Howard, it was indicative of the Fever's first quarter. Messy, but Cunningham was there to be relied upon. And she started the second quarter creating some important points and getting Howard going. Lovely pass. Great defensive stand here. The Dream are on a string and run this really goofy play with Alicia Gray and Nia Coffey cutting simultaneously. This turns into a Griner post-up with plenty of space, to which the Fever crash then recover well when Griner hits the outlet. Then this happens and Indiana don't get discouraged. Down the other end, and they just run a simple play that creates a hole that Indiana find. They really let their de-energize their offense in this game, and this play was a good sign of that. Off a Dream make as well. In a game of who could foul out first, the Fever found a resolve to take the second game in these two teams back-to-back meeting and very narrowly avoided going 1-2. There was some nice execution late, with Clark using the threat of her 3 to set up a nice layup for Aliyah Boston. Then down the other end, who else but Sophie Cunningham to draw this foul after a great defensive possession against Ryan Howard. Also, after this missed 3 from Gray, who else but Cunningham to make the heady play and burn some seconds off the clock after everyone collectively dropped their guard. She definitely wins the Coach's Award in her debut. Their game against the New York Liberty was due to be very telling. Not only was it against the reigning champs who have aspirations of repeating, it was a huge stage for Caitlin Clark and Aliyah Boston to respond. In their last outing against the Atlanta Dream, Clark recorded her first career game without a made 3-pointer, and Boston posted just 4 points and 7 rebounds. Steph White took DeWanna Bonner out of the starting lineup for this game and replaced her with Lexi Hull. I won't get too into that, but I think that's the sign of a great locker room from all parties. We picked this game up with New York cracking out an insanely annoying play to defend. Ionescu rejects the Jonquel screen to go and get Stewie. Jonquel and Cloud play hot potato before Ionescu accepts the Jonquel screen, and they play this pick and roll off the catch, clearing out the strong side for an easy lane to the cup for Jonquel. Even still, Natasha Howard is only a beat behind the play after fighting around the screen for Stewie, yet still makes a great contest that forced Jonquel to make an adjustment. A play this strong from New York resulting in a contested layup like this is a great sign for the Fever. Down the other end, they run a simple high pick and roll and use New York's high press against them on the Boston slip. This is a very heady and mature play from your two young stars against the reigning champs, and it shows how ready they were to bounce back after the last game. Here again, a little later in the quarter, using the Liberty game plan against them. I love this concept, and I think it can be really devastating with the Fever, where the shooter fakes the shot off the dribble and opts for the give and go, but the alignment is wrong. Clark and Boston need to switch places. Still, love this idea, and the potential it has with the Fever is huge. This stretch I really love too. Cunningham takes playmaking responsibilities to get Clark off ball, and the Fever runs strong, which flows into a pick and roll with Dantas as the screener. Minor mistake here, but you love Dantas staying with the play, and she's been making these plays between the margins throughout the young season. And Cunningham splashing on a long ball feels illustrative of this team's adaptability. Then they press and bring the game to New York. Look at how good this pressure is. Also look at how well they recover. The fact this isn't a Marine Johannes layup is the result of a really good day. Then a whistle here for Stewie, and I'm afraid calls like this are going to make me hate the Liberty. But Indiana defend well, get good looks in transition and in half-court offense, and play well when it's messy. Here they go again. Might have gotten away with an out-of-bounds call here, but oh well. And here are two new additions in Bonner and Cunningham, bringing that grit and clarity through the mess, with Bonner getting the steal and the foul. I love this one here as well. There's mismatches everywhere. Howard gets the board and brings it up the court against the great defensive guard, then gives it off to Hull, a great shooter who has the opposing big on her. Then she gives it to Boston, who immediately turns the other way. If she goes back to Hull, then the Liberty switch and get their preferred matchups. But she goes up to Clark, and in this frame right here, Ionescu is in the middle of nowhere. Burke has to provide this useless contest to Clark, and Boston and Howard are full steam ahead against only Natasha Cloud. Unfortunately, the Clark miss is quite bad, but 9 times out of 10 that's either a bucket for Clark or an O-board for Boston or Howard. To me, that's a really smart heads-up play from the whole team, just without the end product. Also, that miss made Clark 0 of 6 from 3 for the game so far, and 0 of 11 in her past 2 games. Even still, look at how wary the Liberty are of her shot. Boston has done such a great job of identifying this and kind of seeing what Clark is seeing. Here, both New York defenders on the pick and roll are above Boston, and the two young stars connect. This is similar to the first play of the game the Fever ran, but this time New York had help in the lane. Even still, Boston makes the finish look simple, and she's responded really well in this game. After 12 missed threes in a row, Clark pulled these two out late in the third quarter. Both players on 0 pass possessions, and just so much trust in her game. This is the type of response you want from a star, and the fact that Boston and Clark found ways to have good games is a great sign for Indiana and the league. Also put the Fever up by 8, and they were fully in control against the champs. I absolutely love this from Boston. Staying with the play, so physical with Stewie and Jonquel Jones. Doesn't complain about a no call, which definitely could have been called on Stewie. But then look at these 2 bumps on Jonquel, who's great at using her physicality. Boston really established herself on the inside, and this is a great response, as there were moments against Atlanta's big that looked a little too easy. Then just taking it at 2 MVPs who are still in their prime. This part of her game seems to be growing every time you watch her play, and she isn't timid or resting on her laurels, she's making her physical presence known. I think the late play execution in this game gives a good idea as to where the Fever are, and it's very close to the reigning champs. I'm just going to ramble while a few of these clips play, but you have a few great and simple actions from New York that result in wide open shots while Indiana is really working hard for contested looks. Also just making plays late, Natasha Cloud had a great block into Wanna Bonner, then was really crafty on Caitlin Clark. The Fever were in a stretch where they weren't getting a good whistle, I agree with that. Steph White stated post-game that they were minus 31 in free throw attempts over their past 3 games. That's unacceptable. These 2 weren't fouls though. These were tremendous defensive plays by Natasha Cloud. But it's hard to look at that objectively after getting a rough whistle all game. But I do think it's worth noting that they were too preoccupied with the whistle, while New York had a plan in place to manage and win the game. I say all this and they lost by 2 points, so I think it was a telling game and one that was very promising for the Fever. This, however, is not a foul. You gotta be delusional to think it is. So we've looked at their 2 young stars, their 2 new additions, and some coaching decisions, but we haven't talked enough about Kelsey Mitchell. Here are her numbers compared to some other notable players in her age range. As for Mitchell, in the 2020s, she's averaged over 18 points per game on a collective 45, 39, 85 splits. As a two-time All-Star who finished 10th in MVP voting, it's an absolute luxury to have her as a secondary creator in the backcourt. Let's look at the game against the Washington Mystics through her eyes. Note to the editor, couldn't have picked a better game to break Mitchell's play down as Caitlin Clark was inactive, but second note to the editor, couldn't have picked a worse game to do it because Brittany Sykes had other ideas. Here Mitchell catches the ball with all 5 Washington Mystics between her and the basket. 3 seconds later, she's at the rim with one Mystic meeting her there. Bad news for Mitchell, it was Brittany Sykes, who makes an incredible play to get the block, but it goes to show what Mitchell can create and achieve on the fast break. Over the course of the season, this will be so many easy points. Here's a nice read from Mitchell, who could very easily be the primary creator on a good team. At the point of the screen and roll, there are 4 Mystics making some form of play towards defending it. This play is also another good display of the physicality Boston has been playing with. Anyway, Mitchell is playing so free here and kicks it out to a wide open Bonner, who has had a slow scoring start to the season, but hits this one cleanly on a really nice pass. Another strong screen from Boston, and Mitchell immediately feels it. Downhill she goes against Shakira Austin for the and one. Austin is one of the last bigs you can make this play against in the WNBA, and Mitchell makes it look so doable. Really nice horn set here that flows into an ISO, and beating Brittany Sykes off the dribble here is no easy feat. But Mitchell gets to the line in a stretch that was dominated by the Mystics. This play is a beauty from White and just gets every defender out of position, which a great player will turn into free throws. So how good are the Indiana Fever? Really good. They aren't championship ready and they've seen what that looks like. They challenged the champs and were in control of that game for a while. That's a great sign. The Liberty and Lynx are clearly better than them, but there's this sea of upper middle class in the WNBA this season that the Fever find themselves in. Whichever team establishes themselves atop this class, or even breaks free of it, will be very telling as the league is pretty strong this year. Indiana has 2 young stars that have taken the league by storm and are only getting better. I feel like they should be gunning for a home court advantage in the playoffs for the 2025 season and looking to make a deep playoff run. The great news is that this core can win a ring together. They're a dynasty in the making and have the characteristics of a title-winning team. They just need more time. But that may be sooner than you think. The WNBA championship could find itself with the Indiana Fever in just a couple of years' time.